it's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank. And I mean, but with it being a exhibition, it makes sense.
Thought like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big.
Into of boxing's most talked about names, YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul and knockout artist Gervonta Tank Davis finally stepped into the ring. The fight world is buzzing. Davis brings speed, power, and big fight experience, while Paul enters with size, height, and a reputation for shocking doubters. Many legends predict Davis will outclass Paul with his skill and precision. Still, some believe Paul's height, reach, and habit of proving people wrong could turn this into the upset of the year.
You know what? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise, that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up, because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that of course he's going to win. And of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still a 65-pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there and taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, I just beat the man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
The fight has also switched locations. Instead of Atlanta, Jake Paul will now face Gervonta Davis on November 14th at the Casa Center in Miami. Paul's promotion company, MVP, announced, the war is no longer in Atlanta. Same date, same fight, new city. The matchup will stream worldwide on Netflix. Though billed as an exhibition, fans are still fired up about the clash. The size gap is striking Paul weight around 199 pounds in his last bout at cruiserweight, while Davis has been fighting closer to 135 pounds because of this. Davis's WBA lightweight title won't be on the line.
Boxing fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a...
The rules of the fight remain unclear. No official contract weight, round count, or confirmation of whether it follows standard pro rules has been announced. Many fans see it less as a serious title fight and more as a crossover event made for entertainment. This has fueled debates about fairness, safety, and whether such mismatched bouts undermine boxing's weight class traditions.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skill, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Hank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Terrence Crawford has expressed doubts about the matchup, mainly because of the huge size difference. To him, it feels more like a show than a real contest, almost like a sparring session being sold as a fight. Crawford respects Davis's skills and explosive style, but he admits Paul's bigger frame could change things if he lands a clean shot. Still, Crawford doesn't buy that this will be held under normal boxing standards. He insists the weight gap makes it hard to call this a fair fight between equals.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over.
Shaka Stevenson, still undefeated and highly respected, also views Paul versus Davis as unfair, especially for Davis, given the size gap. But he's confident Davis's experience, ring IQ, and sharp technique will make the fight look one-sided. Stevenson expects Davis to rely on speed, movement, and clean boxing rather than trying to overpower Paul. He doubts Paul has the skill to keep up and predicts Davis will likely win by decision rather than knockout, while Stevenson criticizes the matchup as bad for boxing's image. He firmly believes Davis is simply on another level compared to Paul.
Case here, when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, styles will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and said he's got good power. Not even the, and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch, and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. Been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
What do you think about the rumors of Tank and Jake fight?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. He called cap on it. So if you gonna call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So he better be on his A game.
Daniel Cormier takes a balanced view of this fight. He gives Jake Paul respect for daring to step into the ring with someone as skilled as Gervonta Davis, knowing the risks and rewards involved. Still, he points out the huge size gap makes the matchup look unfair in traditional boxing terms. Cormier makes it clear that Davis is the far more accomplished fighter, with greater skill and experience, meaning Paul is taking a big gamble. He also weighs the stakes. For Paul, a loss could hurt his growing credibility, while for Davis, losing to a much bigger man could damage his reputation. Cormier doesn't give a bold prediction, but leans toward Davis winning based on pure boxing talent, while admitting Paul's size makes things unpredictable.
I swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas. When Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul, I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is. But he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt, I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting a real boxer? That's a real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true. They're fighting.
Teofimo Lopez sees Paul versus Davis less as a fight for titles or legacy, and more as a show built on entertainment and money. He says that's not necessarily a bad thing, since both men will walk away with huge paydays and the spotlight that comes with it. While it may not have the prestige of a championship fight, Lopez believes it still matters because it will bring in casual fans and capture mainstream interest, even as an exhibition. He thinks the matchup can help boxing by introducing the sport to new audiences and proving how big boxing can get when drama, personality, and hype are part of the package.
And I'm actually very happy for Gervonta and Jake. I really am, man. It's good for the sport in some way, you know?
So a heavyweight versus a lightweight.
Yeah.
You got a fly hit me, yeah. A heavyweight versus a lightweight. How's this gonna work?
Hey, they make it work. It's an exhibition for a reason. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And, you know, shout out to Netflix and shout out to both of them, honestly. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the boxing world are kind of upset. I could care less. I think they're going to go out there and make their money. It falls on the number 8 for a reason. They're going to make a lot of money.
Have you got a prediction for that fight?
My prediction? A show.
Well, clearly it's a show, but when you've got a lot of people underestimating Jake Paul once again, but when you've got a heavyweight boxer who knows how to throw punches and knows the basics against a lightweight, it's quite a difference. I mean, have you sparred heavyweights before?
Yeah.
Competitive sparring in the ring?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same, not at all. Definitely got to move. I've actually played around a few times, went through between their legs just to duck around. Yeah, because they're taller, you know. But I think for that competition, that fight, it reminds me a lot like The Big Show, and Floyd Mayweather when they fought in WrestleMania.
And will that end the same way?
Possibly. Maybe some brass knuckles in there too.
Can you see Jake Paul knocking out Gervonta Davis?
It's boxing, man. And if it's a show like this, anything goes, anything happens. You know, we expected Mike Tyson to do something, didn't go out that way. Jake Paul's training very hard, so, you know, kudos to both guys.
Promoter Eddie Hearn shares a similar view, but adds a warning. He argues boxing and entertainment should remain separate, and a fight like Paul versus Davis dangerously blurs that line. Hearn says the matchup isn't about testing skill on equal ground. It's a business move built on fame and social media attention. He points to the big size difference as proof that this isn't true competition. From a business standpoint, though, he admits the fight is huge. It will draw global attention, sell tickets, and make serious money. Still, as someone who values real competition, Hearn feels it hurts boxing when fights are arranged for profits over sporting merit. Yet, even he admits that from a promoter's angle, it's guaranteed success.
They always told us that it was, you know, we were looking at that fight for February of next year, and they always said that there was a chance that Jake would fight in November. I think, wasn't I the one that broke Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis 6 months ago or something? I knew that they'd agree that deal. I didn't know they were about to announce it then, but I did know that they'd agreed that deal previously. So I don't like it, if I'm honest. I mean, I think we need to really differentiate between boxing and an entertainment concept, and that's what that is. It's a freak show, it's entertainment, it's a lightweight fighting a cruiserweight, you know, with, I don't know, is it bigger gloves and certain minutes per round? I don't know what it is, but, you know, I understand the market and I understand this freak show shock kind of the world mentality of people potentially tuning in. Is that a step too far? Maybe. I mean, I hated Jake Paul against Mike Tyson, but it did massive numbers. I hate Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis. It'll probably do massive numbers. So that's when you really have to differentiate yourself between just because you don't like it doesn't mean it isn't going to do good business. Now, whether you want to be involved with it is another kettle of fish. I don't want to be involved with it, but I do respect the fact that it's going to do big numbers. It's just not boxing. And I don't think we should promote it as boxing.
In the meantime, then, Eddie, where does that leave you with Anthony Joshua? Are you exploring other options for the end of this year, or are you still looking at that fight for the beginning?
Yeah, no, we're not interested in the Jake Paul fight right now. After that, I mean, like, you know, we're not going to wait around till November. Is it November or December? Whenever.
Rolly Romero takes a calm approach to the fight, saying Davis's legacy is already secure no matter what happens. As a multi-division world champion with big wins and major titles, Tank's reputation won't be ruined even if he loses to Jake Paul. At the same time, Romero acknowledges Paul's size is a real factor and gives him a natural advantage, while he stresses that Paul's physical edge doesn't erase everything Davis has already achieved. Tank's respect, titles, and place in boxing history remain solid regardless of this matchup's outcome.
But like, Jake Paul might be too big for him, or Tank might crack him. You don't know. Like I said, like, or it's an exhibition. We don't know if they throw at each other or not, or we don't know. I don't know. I can't give an opinion because I don't know what's going on.
Do you think it impacts, like, will it impact Tank's legacy if Jake Paul were, like, to beat him or even, like, knock him out?
Dude, Tank's a 3-division world champion, a 4-time 3-division world champion. At the end of it, bro, you can't take anything away from him.
Malik Naji focuses on the difference between size and experience. While Jake Paul has gained popularity and built a strong frame, Malik Naji says that experience will always outweigh raw power. Davis has fought on the biggest stages, headlined major cards, and beaten elite opponents. Paul can't match Tank's years of training, ring intelligence, and adaptability. Malik Naji believes that in boxing, skill and experience usually decide the winner, not size alone.
I think Davis is more to lose because he's the bona fide world champion. I don't care if he's much smaller. I think Jake Paul has sort of plateaued as far as where his boxing is concerned. It's rather low level. He's big, he's physical, he's strong, he can hit. So there is that risk. You know, Davis, you know, at lightweight, you're in a moment where it's too physical for you, you can clinch. Against the heavyweight, where you clinching? You ain't getting out of that corner just clinching anymore if you run out of space. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But Davis, listen, there's a lot of talking points that I'm sure we'll get into when this gets closer to the fight. Davis can still punch a lightweight, can drop a heavyweight. You know, there's a lot to gain there, right? If Davis knocks...
The answer is yes.
If Davis drops Jake on his ass, as much as Davis is the one with more to lose, it's still a highlight moment.
A visual that will stay forever.
Yeah, but if you get dropped, even if you're smaller, you're still a world champion in multiple weight classes. If you get dropped, you know, what's the look? What's the feel? On the inside, as boxers, me and, you know, Chris Algieri, the champion, even you, Jim, you have fight experience, so we know that the risk is a big guy that big hits you, you're probably going down if you're a small guy, if he hits you clean. So we know the risk, but how does it look to the public eye who don't understand that? You know what I mean? The public. So there is a lot to lose, though. There's a bit to gain. I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with this had Davis's career arc been one that benefited boxing. Davis was manufactured and put into a position where he's supposed to benefit boxing. And I don't think he has. I think he's hurt boxing. So by giving him this reward, that's my problem. Why are we watching this? Why don't you make him earn his spot that he still has?